So leaving off where we last recorded, our goal was placing pictures for each of our arguments. This argument was 1A. Remember, in this slide, for this specific part of our argument or report, we're just trying to discuss how we think the identical twins were formed and how we think mutations occurred during their formation, right? We picked an image together on Google Images. We just selected one we thought could help support our writing. And so we placed this image here. And then we were trying to figure out a way that we can kind of draw attention to the picture in a way that supports our writing. And what I was doing was I made a little box, just like this, right? And we were trying to decide where I wanted to highlight a part of this picture. Notice it's the left side because that's monozygotic, that's identical, it's talking about identical twins. But I created a little box so that I could highlight and circle the area I thought where mutations might have happened to help the twins be different, right? Ultimately, it's up to you to decide that, so I'm not here to shape your position on that. I want you to be able to think about it. But I will just do a quick reminder of how to make the box. And I always want you to make sure that in your writing, you draw the writer to the picture. So in your writing, when you fill in blanks here, make sure it makes people think about your picture, or make sure you talk about the picture in a way that it gives you more support and helps clarify your ideas. Remember, a picture is good because it can communicate your ideas and support your ideas. It can be used as evidence. But the reason why the box is here and why we created it is because we want the person to see it the way you want them to see it. You want them to focus on the part that you think is important for your argument. And again, the box's function, the only reason we created a little box was to pinpoint an area during twin formation that we thought mutations could have occurred, right? So I want to really quickly just show you how to use the symbol functions so you can easily highlight parts of pictures to strengthen how you communicate, okay? So I'm going to delete this. So the first thing is this little icon area here allows you to choose different shapes. Let's say I wanted to, well, we'll do the square first, but I'll show you can do different things. So you get a square. Watch what happens when you put a square down though. It's filled in, it has color, filling. So you go to this icon here for fill color, and you go to transparent. Boom. Right now it's in black. You may want a color that stands out more, right? So you could do, let's say, this more violet color. And right now the line is thin. It's a little easier to miss. So what you can do, well, you got to click on the image. When you click, every time you click on the shape, it allows you new options here, right? And so it says line weight here. I'm going to take it to 8, and you can already see it standing out more. Fantastic, right? Now I want it to fit the right size, so I'm going to shrink it down a little. And I want to show you how I would use this to write with and to strengthen my ideas. But I'm going to do it with the fraternal or the dizygotic. This doesn't fit with our argument, but it's a safe way for me to give you an example without giving any answers, right? I want you to think on your own, right? So let's pretend that for dizygotic twins, so remember, our patients are mono or identical, but fraternal is different, right? They never shared the same zygote. So that's what I'm going to talk about. Again, this is just an example. It will not help you with your report, okay? All right, so but what if we didn't want to use a square? And I just showed you how to do that, but let's delete it. Let's just say we wanted to use an arrow. So you can go here, click on the arrow shapes, and you can see there's lots of different options. But we can just get a classic, kind of blocky looking arrow. And you don't have to do as much. This kind of stands out on its own, but if you wanted it to really be bright, you could make it red. Boom, right? Easy enough. So let's say that I want people to focus on this one in specific. In fact, you could even combine squares and arrows. And you could even throw this here. The fill color, you can make transparent. I tend to make the box the same color as the arrow. I feel like they match better, and it kind of seems as though they go together, right? So boom, so you're already changing a Google image to fit your needs. Even if you don't find an image that you don't like perfect, like I didn't like this image perfectly because it shows identical and fraternal twin formation. So it gives more information than I want, but I'm going to make it work for me. And how do we use images? Well, we talk about the images down here when we need to. And that's a common way in writing for science is you use images or models and you talk about them to help people learn. The point is, in your report, you're helping people learn, helping me learn your thinking. And these images will help you explain yourself and give evidence. All right, so I'm going to clear this first blank away, and I just want to show you how you can write using the model or the picture above that you choose. All right, so a division of the embryo must have occurred. And let's see, how are we going to complete the sentence where it makes sense? Now, the sentence overall is trying to say that they're genetically different offspring. It says division of the embryo must have occurred blank to produce genetically different offspring. So I'll say must have occurred when the zygote or fertilized egg was separate from each twin. And then I could write the image above represents a single fertilized egg carrying its own mutated genes. So, and then I colored the text that I just added so it kind of stands out a little. So I'd recommend anytime you fill in the blank with your own writing, just like here, if you could change the color of the text, it makes it easier for me to see how you connected your ideas to the sentence that was already there. And it makes it more easily faster for me to give you feedback and give you the best grade possible, okay? But let's see what I did. It said division of the embryo must have occurred, and here's my thoughts, right? So this is the same kind of strategy you'd use. I put division of the embryo must have occurred when the zygote or fertilized egg was separate from each twin. Now in this situation they were always separate, right? So it's a little funny, but I identified one that was separate, right? A separate zygote here. It said the image above represents a single fertilized egg carrying its own mutated genes. All right. So what's missing though? What's missing is I'm not saying which part of the picture is showing a single fertilized egg. So what I'm going to do I'm going to put a little parentheses in my writing here so that people know to look at the red arrow in the red box, because I want them, that's where I want their eyes to go. So that's what we're going to do. So here's the parentheses. I'm going to put C, red arrow, and box above. Close parenthesis. And so that way I'm basically saying, well, I think I know when the embryo divided that allowed the twins to become different, right? I think I know when, and I highlighted it in the picture. And then when I write about it down here, I talk about how the picture kind of gives a visual support or evidence for my thinking, right? So a person can read what I wrote and understand it, and also when they see this parenthesis that says see red arrow and box above, it connects my writing to the picture. It gives them even better opportunity to understand my reasoning or my thinking. And that ultimately is to try to explain how there was genetically different offspring, right? You continue this same process to fill in each blank. It says the hypothesis found is supported with evidence was, now let's say, you know, we numbered the hypotheses 1 through 4. Let's just pretend it was hypothesis 4. So with evidence, was supported with evidence. So it says the hypothesis found is supported with evidence was number 4 because, and I'm just going to make some stuff up here. I'm going to say it was supported because the other hypotheses based on genetic mutations failed to show differences. Now in the real world doing this project, that's not the case. I'm making stuff up to just give you an example, right? So I said hypothesis 4 was the only one that could have been supported because the other hypothesis said that there were genetic mutations, and I just didn't see that right in my studies. I'm just pretending here. All right. Alright, so the next sentence says, this mutation produced, but I really in my writing haven't said which mutation, so I'm going to say this mutation, comma, gene 5 produced, I'm going to say point mutations showing different nucleotides between these sisters. Again, it won't make sense because I'm just making things up, right? I'm just giving examples. And then the final sentence here actually does, it's me trying to help you reference it. It says, the model above represents this scenario by showing, now, the model that I'm using here doesn't show any genetic changes. So that's how I'm going to talk about it. I'm going to say, well, it doesn't show anything about genetics, but it does show that there's two separate cells, right? Or developing embryos, zygotes, whatever you want to call them, right? So the model represents the scenario by showing, and let's say that when the zygotes are separate, each can undergo mutations without affecting the other twins zygote or developing embryo. Now you might have noticed I'm using the word zygote, I'm using the word embryo. How can we learn more about these words? Well, we could go to these links, as I'm always suggesting, right? And I could go, for this slide, it's all about the twins, right? So I could learn to use the word zygotes, embryos, and some of the other important words using these links, because these websites with their articles and their videos help explain some of the good vocabulary to explain how identical twins form. So I was confident using certain words because I've gone to these links. Whoa, that's the wrong one. Here we go. All right, so I added basically a lot of information here. You can see how much is easy to write. I've done a paragraph of reporting just on how I think the identical twins formed between the sisters in my imaginary situation. I'm gonna highlight in purple what I wrote just so it stands out. I'll do the burgundy again. And I'll put when zygotes. Here we go. So, and this quickly allows someone to see the difference in the original sentence frames and my own writing. Look how much I've written compared to the original little sentences, right? Most of it is going to be your own writing. I hope this slide helped give an example of how to do 1A. Again, 1A, this whole slide, the whole purpose is just to explain how we think identical twins formed and how the twins may have experienced their mutation. But what's the next steps? What are the next slides about? Well, let's look. Slide number 2 is how the mutated protein caused differences in phenotype of the twins. So we want to talk about the protein specifically of a specific gene. So at this point, you either think one or more genes are responsible, and if we're going to do the argument for 1B, which is the second slide, we have to be prepared to talk about those specific genes. And we have to be able to talk specifically about how the protein made from that gene is different or would function differently between the twins. You would find a picture of proteins or of your specific protein, or again, if you have multiple genes that you are blaming, then you need to find slides or add multiple pictures here. There's no reason why you can't add three or four different photos in this space here that can support your writing. And just use our example from slide 1A to help remind you about how to add pictures and focus people's thinking on the photos. And that's 1B. So it says Dylan grew different from Cole, his DNA experience, right? We'll talk about the mutations, talk about the specific genes. And on we go. Slide 3 is you need to specifically talk about the proteins and how it might affect people.